Hello, lovely YouTubers. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. This is a nighttime edition on a Monday night after a very big weekend. I had a friend come to stay and we had a lot of fun. And I'm feeling really happy and grateful for that amidst all the ongoing corona stuff. It's the start of August. Hot summer ahead. And yeah, I'm just feeling super peaceful and want to read. So here we go. We're on to chapter 15, and we are reading On the Path to Enlightenment by Mathieu Ricard. You don't need to have read any other chapters to jump in. This chapter is a big one, so I'm going to do what I did on the previous one and skip some of the poetry, but get the book, read the poetry for yourself because it's gorgeous. But I will read some. And this chapter is called Exposing Faults, which I guess we all need to do, don't we, to find where we can grow, find our faults and eradicate them, I guess. Anyway, let's see what the Buddhists have to say. Okay, chapter 15, Exposing Faults. The Kadampa masters used to say that the kindest teacher is one who reveals our hidden faults and thus enables us to see what is holding us back on the path. Reassuring flattery will only serve to sustain our ignorance, our vanity, and our suffering. The rebukes of a true master, one whose sole purpose is to awaken his students, have nothing to do with contempt or a tendency to see defects in others' behavior. Just as the needle of a compass stubbornly and unambiguously points north, they provide their students with precious indications that will save them from wasting time, taking wrong directions, or getting trapped in their own weaknesses. After reading some of the following texts, one might think that the authors are castigating themselves. But this expression of humility is a traditional way of presenting the teaching. The disciple knows how to take it. He understands that the teacher is showing him a mirror. Until we are able to integrate what we have understood through meditation into our everyday life, the smallest obstacle will trip us up, and we will be unable to cope with the vagaries of existence while continuing to grow spiritually. Periods of meditation and post-meditation must reinforce each other, or the fruit of the spiritual path will remain out of reach. To correct one's faults and achieve stability, it is essential to be vigilant at all times. In the words of a Kadampa master, the sword of attention guards the door of my mind. If passions threaten, I'll threaten them back. I'll release my grip when they release theirs. Practice requires a sustained effort. If we were naturally free from attachment and anger, and our only concern was for infinite beings, we would already be accomplished, and we would not need to practice. As that is generally not the case, we must keep in mind the meaning of the teachings and carefully observe what we do, say, and think. It is only by assiduous discipline that as practitioners of the Dharma, we can deeply and definitively transform our way of being. This is from Diljo Khyentse Rinpoche. When you are criticized, accept it as an opportunity to acknowledge your hidden faults and increase your humility. Criticisms are your teacher, destroying attachment and craving. If brought to the path, harsh words and blame will inspire your practice and strengthen your discipline. How can you ever repay such kindness? The happiness and suffering created by praise and criticism are ephemeral. When you are complimented, instead of feeling proud, just regard the praise as if it were something you were hearing in a dream or a fantasy. Tell yourself that it is not you that is being praised, but the good qualities you may have developed through spiritual practice. In fact, the truth is that the only people really worthy of praise are those who have attained liberation. If you point out someone's faults, they will become quite upset, even if it is your own child or student. If you flatter people, however, attributing to them qualities they do not possess, they will be delighted. If people always agree with us and flatter us, it may make us feel good, but it will not help us to develop the qualities of a Dharma practitioner. What will truly help us most is if someone points out our faults and shows us the right way to deal with them. Gold, through repeated beating and melting, becomes more and more refined. In the same way, by continually recognizing our own faults and applying the teacher's instructions, we will be able to transform our negative qualities into the path of liberation. When a troublemaker is identified and apprehended, peace returns to the village. Similarly, when our faults are unearthed by a truly kind teacher, enabling us to recognize and eradicate them, peace returns to our being. The true spiritual teacher speaks frankly, striking at the core of our defects in order to lead us to the right path. Okay, I'm going to go to there's so much poetry here. Okay, great. I'm going to go to this guy, Dodrup Tenpai Nyama. Giving advice in a technical manner sometimes makes it more difficult to understand, so I will speak in everyday language. Anyway, I'm not capable of long and beautiful speeches. Well, let's get straight to the point. Suppose that the Lord of Death appears before you today. He cuts the fine thread of your existence, interrupts the continuous movement of your life force, and your last breath escapes like a spark. There's your beloved body, which you have so pampered, abandoned on your bed. Your friends and relatives cannot accompany you, and you are forced to leave behind all the goods that you have spent your life accumulating. In the intermediate state, the bardo, a multitude of fantasies appear to you, as numerous as the stars of the night, and you enter a frightful darkness. Now you are on a terrifying and painful path where the proof of your bad karma will manifest clearly to you. Can you still remain comfortable and relaxed? It is easy to say, I will die tomorrow. We may say that life is ephemeral, but in fact, when we hear or teach the Dharma in the morning and in the afternoon we are busy making long-term plans, are we really thinking of death? The answer is clear. The past is over. Now, every moment, from dawn to dusk, keep this question in mind. What must I do to have no regrets when I die? Don't forget it. This is important, so think about it now. Talking, walking, urinating, defecating, eating, aren't you bored sick with the activities of this life? What do you have better to do than to apply yourself to spiritual practice? A flash of faith is in the 3 jewels, or a little compassion that arises in you, and it is already the Dharma. Tell yourself that if you do not do your best now to practice the noble path, getting another human life once your skull and bones are in the ground will not be as easy as droppings falling from the backside of a horse. In summer, look in your larder and see how many flies cluster on a piece of rotten meat, and you will easily understand that there are many more beings in the lower worlds than in the human realm. If you mumble prayers without taking the path of liberation, as if you had a tongue of crumpled paper in a wooden mouth, and the old plague of ordinary worries still lurks in you, tell me what can come of this sham of practice. Think hard and make up your mind once and for all to devote your time to the Dharma. Do not trust misleading fake Buddhas. Do not seek the protection of the ghosts that inhabit the air. Do not ask advice from harmful friends and other childish people. Give your whole being to the 3 jewels, the only infallible refuge. Never forget to have such devotion that you see your master as the Buddha in person. Do not criticize the great sages. If friends hurt you, do not let resentment invade your mind. If an enemy hurts you, do not let yourself be overwhelmed by lamentation. When someone speaks harshly to you, if you wonder, why has this person spoken to me so nastily, and that nagging thought fills your heart as if it is as if a virulent demon had arisen in you, tell yourself that such a thought is a demon who wants to harm you, and understand that you really need the remedy of wisdom. Behaviour such as amassing and hoarding wealth, or flattering close friends while nourishing malicious thoughts against others, only strengthens attachment and aversion, and condemns you to become the slave of negative emotions. And once you start to serve your negative emotions, all possible afflictions, each one worse than the other, will plague you. Do you not see that it is through serving those emotions in samsara from time immemorial that now you are in such a pitiable condition, where your body, composed of impure aggregates, attracts all sorts of suffering? From now on, consider the negative emotions as your enemies, and those who hurt you as friends. When an insect bites your back, you cannot stand it. You cry, "Ah, wretched beast!" So how will you deal with great suffering? Well, it's the same for other beings who all just want to be happy and not suffer. In children's tales, one speaks of perfect happiness and pitiful suffering. Be aware that everyone feels unhappy as soon as he or she experiences a bit of suffering, and see if you can have a good heart. Don't forget it. Don't forget it. Long life to you. Lovely. Checking out the poetry. Ooh, okay. Right, guys, I'm going to end with, one poem from Gyalwa Longshen Rabjam. It's a song to exhort myself and others to bear in mind that the ordinary business of this life and the illusions of this world provide neither benefit nor refuge. I shan't sing. On the mountain of habitual tendencies accumulated since time immemorial, the net of ignorant duality veils the clear light of mind. Because you do not have the slightest weariness of this world of samsara, unconscious one, I have some advice for you. If you do understand, see the misleading nature of this ephemeral life, reflection and analysis is useless. If, once more, you fail to take the path of liberation, having obtained a human life is useless. If you do not purify negative actions and develop positive ones, to have entered the door of the Dharma is useless. If you do not keep in mind the suffering of the lower worlds, seeming to practice Dharma is useless. If you are not thoroughly convinced of the vanity of this life, seeming to accumulate merit is useless. If inwardly you are unsatisfied and unable to have no needs, seeming to have few desires is useless. If, through not having mastered your mind, you are incapable of humility, seeming to practice patience is useless. If you have not conquered your anger and pride from within, seeming to be disciplined is useless. If you have not assimilated the Dharma deep within you, seeming to know the sutras and tantras is useless. If you have not aroused limitless bodhicitta in your heart, seeming to practice the great vehicle is useless. If you do not keep your vows and spiritual commitments perfectly pure, seeming to practice the secret mantra vehicle is useless. If you have not persuaded yourself to be profoundly weary of samsara, seeming to practice in solitary places is useless. If you have not truly abandoned your attachment to the reality of things, seeming to be a good Dharma practitioner is useless. If you do not take your own mind as the true witness, seeming to be a good person in the eyes of others is useless. If you are not disgusted with the 8 worldly concerns, seeming to be an excellent practitioner is useless. If you have not abandoned the dispersions of desire for prestige and fame, seeming to have many disciples is useless. If you have not given up vanity, partiality, and thirst for glory, seeming to be altruistic is useless. If you only think of yourself, seeming to be generous is useless. If your altruism is not entirely free of selfish desires, seeming to help others is useless. If you are not moved by your teacher and his teachings, seeming to have faith is useless. If you yourself do not have deep certainty, seeming to be a counsel for others is useless. If you do not see your inner negative emotions as enemies, employing external remedies is useless. Without sadness in samsara, renunciation, and the thought of death, hoping to attain enlightenment is useless. If you do not commit yourself to practice in solitude, having listened to and reflected on the teachings is useless. If you are disgusted with the things of the world but still make long-term plans, meditating in solitude is useless. If you have not met an authentic spiritual master, seeming to follow a spiritual friend is useless. If you do not sincerely feel infinite devotion, seeming to rely on your spiritual master is useless. If the blessings of the master do not penetrate your heart, embarking on the path of liberation is useless. If you are not able to practice, renouncing worldly things, knowing the ultimate nature is useless. If you have not acquired unfeigned pure vision, seeming to have great fervour is useless. If you do not have fervent and sincere respect, seeming to honour your spiritual companions is useless. If you have not become familiar with your own awareness, to have received the profound instructions is useless. If you have not acquired inner confidence, free from duality, a view that is only general understanding is useless. If you cannot meditate while remaining free from adopting and rejecting, meditating using conceptual references is useless. If you do not understand that your own perceptions are empty without reality, seeming to practice non-duality is useless. If you do not recognize that unobstructed awareness emptiness is the absolute dimension, trying to attain the fruit of the path is useless. If you do not apply the antidotes adapted to your mind, intellectual talk is useless. If you do not purify thoughts without rejecting them, letting them dissolve in the space of awareness, positive thoughts that are doubly illusory are useless. If you do not purify the 5 poisons, eliminating harmful thoughts as soon as they arise, the emptiness of non-action is useless. If you do not have inner certainty in the view, meditation, and action, wandering from one sacred place to another is useless. If you have not exhausted the intellect and seen the nature of phenomena in its nakedness, seeming to be an accomplished yogi is useless. If you do not know how to rest continually in awareness emptiness, seeming to be a great meditator is useless. If you do not realize the transparency of phenomena, recognizing that they have no independent existence, the introduction to the nature of mind is useless. If you are not so weary of samsara that you want to renounce everything, meditating in solitude is useless. If you do not abandon hopes and fears and continue to fear suffering and worry about the future, seeming to have high realization is useless. If you do not discipline your mind by scrupulous behavior, seeming to behave like a liberated yogi is useless. If you do not wander in wild, uninhabited places, retreats and vows are useless. If you do not throw to the winds your ambitions for this life, seeming to be a good practitioner is useless. If you remain obsessed with your reputation and infatuated with your outward appearance, seeming to be a good lama is useless. If you do not forsake the distractions caused by life in society, simply to receive everyone's praises is useless. Now it is time for you to follow the example of masters of the past by pursuing the path of liberation. I have given you this advice from the heart. Turn your mind inward, and you will see that what I say is true. The first step in the right direction is to turn your back on samsara. The second is to destroy the mistake of taking things for real. And the final one, to conquer the unchanging land of awareness. Like this, you will naturally accomplish your own benefit and that of others. This concludes the 3rd chapter of advice to myself in the form of adamantine songs, the chapter on overcoming attachment to the things of this life. End of chapter 15. I've really skipped over some poetry in that chapter. There is a lot, like probably about 10 pages, maybe 15 pages of poetry, which will probably be really beautiful. But I want to keep my videos a little bit shorter if I can, and also encourage you to get the book and give it, your time, as well as listening to me, perhaps. But yeah, I hope that was interesting for you. I think that yes, on a very basic level, perhaps I think I agree. We want people to be candid, and it might be a bit painful at first to hear our faults, or things we need to work on, but ultimately out of that pain comes the good stuff. And there was some stuff in that song at the end that resonated. You can't just be a good meditator but still care about, there are so many things like reputation and ambitions in this reality, and things that are maybe we need to let go of a little bit, things we've been told to care about that maybe, I don't know, do they matter? I'm not sure anymore. And with Corona, I think it's been a good opportunity for a lot of people to question what they've been striving for, caring about. Does it matter? Yeah, lovely. Well, thank you very much, everyone. So there's only one very short chapter left, chapter 16. I'll do it really, really soon. Yeah, I hope you are enjoying the summer so far, and I'll see you really soon. I hope you're well, and if you're not well right now, I hope you're okay, and I hope you get better soon.